I think it's interesting as we've been talking about this Eagles problem. When you watch that game last night and saw how a offensive line, a wrecked offensive line, can impact a game, I think you saw firsthand, Casey Joyner, what happened last night to the Kansas City Chiefs. Their offensive line was a mess, and their offensive game plan was a mess with it.
It absolutely was. It brings back, I frequently refer to the old Raiders under Al Davis and their approach to the game. And John Madden used to say that the offensive line was the most important thing that you had from building a team. And Al Davis disagreed and said it was cornerbacks. But Al Davis thought the offensive line was the second most important. So that's part of the reason they focus so much of their energy on that group and why it helped them out. And that's what you're seeing in the NFL today. If you can control the line of scrimmage, if you could dominate with your offensive line, you can run about just about any type of system you want to run. And if you can't, you really can't run any system. And we saw that yesterday at Kansas City. They couldn't block up front, and it destroyed their offense.
It really did. Now, do you look at that as the difference in that game last night?
I think I watch a lot of plane crash investigation videos, and it seems like the Chiefs offense looked like a plane crash last night. Usually when you watch those videos, there's like four things. It's not usually one thing that causes the wreck. It's 3, 4, 5 things that does it. So I look last night and I go, the offensive line, I don't understand why. I get it, and I don't understand why you lose your left tackle and you decide we're going to take our right tackle and move him there. We're going to take our right guard, move him to right tackle. We're going to start a new right guard. Instead of having one potential problem, now you got 3. So that was part of it. It was Mahomes' toe. I think it was impacting him more than everybody thought it would. He just wasn't quite as accurate, not quite as mobile. He still made some great plays, but he didn't look quite like what Patrick Mahomes normally looks like. And I thought that as Peter King said, and the Chiefs looked like they were not a poised team. I think what happened with Britt Reid in that whole situation late in the week, I really think that troubled Andy Reid, and I think the team took some of that vibe from him.
Well, obviously, you got to give Tampa's defense a lot of credit. Now,
Yes.
Do you look at what Todd Bowles did and said, look, their line is in shambles. We're going to come up with a game plan to go after that?
I look at it and say, and I'm not taking anything away from Bowles. Bowles has been a superb defensive coordinator. He went 14 and 34 his last 3 years as a head coach of the Jets. So this talk about him being a great head coach, sometimes your skill set says you should be a defensive coordinator. He'd have to prove that there's something more there, because it was a train wreck when he left there. But as far as being a great defensive coordinator, there's no doubt he's a great defensive coordinator. But look at last night. He sits back and plays cover 2 and says their offensive line has got 3 starters, 2 starters out of position and a new starter. I'm just going to take my talented front 4 and just get as aggressive as I can against that front and just sit back and play cover 2 and see if you can beat me. And it's your cover 2 or cover 4. It's not like it's not a smart game plan, but it's also we're going to do this, and until you can make us stop doing this, we're going to keep doing it. And Kansas City never got to a point where they could get them to stop doing it.
Before the game, we asked the question, if Andy Reid wins, what does this mean for his legacy? Well, he lost, and they couldn't even score 1 touchdown. But like you said, a lot of factors. Does this hurt the legacy? Does it keep it neutral, knowing that there's going to be more Super Bowl trips with this quarterback probably? How do you see the conversation moving forward for Andy Reid?
You look at the Hall of Fame, and the Hall of Fame seems to say, for the most part, that you got to get 2 championships to get in. Tom Flores has 2, and he got in, but you make some exceptions for a guy like a Bill Cowher. I think of it this way. I look at it from a different perspective to say, Chiefs almost lost last year. They were behind after 3 quarters and great comeback and things, but they almost lost. Imagine if Jet Chip Wasp doesn't work and they lose that game. Now Andy Reid is the guy who lost to New England in the championship game. Then he would have lost to San Francisco in the Super Bowl. Now he loses to Tampa in the Super Bowl. We'd still be talking about him in about the same light as we were before this. So maybe it is that last year made a reset for him. And I keep thinking this idea that Mahomes is going to keep going all these Super Bowls. Think back to, I'm going back in the day a little bit, but Dan Marino, great rookie year, terrific second year, and everybody's like, he's going to make tons of Super Bowls down the road, and he never made another one. It's not guaranteed that Mahomes keeps going back to, they're saying last night he could win 4 more Super Bowls. I'm like, are you kidding me? Nobody wins 4 Super Bowls for the most part. He could, but let's not just make that the default for him. There was also other paths that say he might not win titles.
Tom Brady won the MVP last night, and I don't know that his numbers were jumped off like, oh, wow, this is one of his best performances. But I want to ask you, was this a great Tampa team? Or, did Brady Will this? What do you make of Brady being a part of this team? Because this isn't a lot. I mean, they had a lot of guys that were on this team last year, and that was not a very good team. Did just adding Brady to that team make them the best team in the league for a guy who did not put up, Brady MVP type numbers?
No, it wasn't. He was the MVP because he had a good game, and there wasn't anybody else who was strong enough candidate. Really, I mean, maybe Gronk, maybe Fournette with the runs, but really, he was about the only guy you could pick because nobody really stood up. But the thing about Brady is, they talked that later in the year, the Bucs were now let's run the ball. We're going to run. What did Romo say? Run the ball, throw screen passes, then go deep. It's a high percentage approach. It's almost a power football-esque approach. We're going to play that type of game. That's not what Bruce Arians normally is. It's no risk it, no biscuit kind of approach. And I think he adapted his approach, realizing I can still get the big plays. Brady's going to make sure I get the big plays in my offense, but I can start playing a little more conservative, a little more high percentage than I normally would. And that changed the dynamic of that team, which allowed them to get more out of what the talent that they had. I don't think that Arians necessarily is changing his approach entirely, but I think they finally reached that hybrid approach of what those two like to do, and it made this offense what it was. And this offense could not, I'm going to say protect the defense, but make play a type of game that the defense doesn't have to win the game.
I don't know why I'm on this coach legacy mindset right now, but you mentioned Bruce Arians. What does this mean for him? Do people look at this as Super Bowl winning head coach, or this is a product of Brady? Anyone could have been in there. I heard that all the time this morning. I'm like, whoa, are we doing that already? So, what does this mean for Bruce Arians?
What Bruce Arians saying this on the stage last night, he said, I didn't do anything here. All these people did this for me. I love the way he deflects the credit and says, hey, it's somebody else. But having said that, not everybody can do what he did. I think if he wins another Super Bowl, I think he could be in the, Tom Flores, Mike Shanahan, that group of coaches that wins a couple of championships and it gets Hall of Fame consideration. He had some good years at Arizona, and if he coaches another couple, 3 years here, and let's say he gets one more championship, has another couple of successful seasons, a couple of playoff bursts, win maybe a conference championship or something of that nature, you'd be talking about enough skins on the wall to make a case to put him in Canton. I'm not saying he'd definitely go, but you can make a case for it, which is amazing considering how late his head coaching career started.
Yeah, and for me, and maybe this is a flawed mindset, but if he was to win again, let's say next year they run it back, Brady and Arians win again, I would almost look at Bill Belichick and go, is that fair for me to do, or am I crazy?
Belichick himself says it's a player's game. He's very, very consistent about saying it is a player's game. There's that thing in Do Your Job afterwards where I think it's Edelman came up to him and said, Edelman and Amendola came up and said, hey, I'd do anything for you, coach. And he basically deflects it and says, hey, it's a player's game. You guys won this game. You guys did a great job. So I think, though, the thing about Belichick and Brady is before Belichick, I don't know. A lot of coaches might have tried to make Brady into what they wanted him to be. If he would have been paired with Arians before he became Tom Brady, Arians might have been like, you're going to be a no risk it, no biscuit kind of guy. You're going to be this type of quarterback. I think Belichick just realized this is the type of game plan I need to craft for this quarterback. And now he's made a blueprint that a guy like Arians can follow. So Belichick still deserves some credit for figuring out what it is that Brady does exceptionally well, maximizing the value of that and doing it over the long term. And then Brady obviously added to that by being able to do this for 20 years now, let's say.
Yeah, I know. At what point in that game were you watching that game saying, this is all Tampa Bay. Kansas City's out. They got no shot here.
I was worried for Kansas City when they threw all passes on their first drive and all passes on their third drive. And they had 2 runs on the first drive because Mahomes scrambled a couple of times. But when they did that, and then they passed all that they did on their third drive, that was a concern for me because when they played Buffalo earlier this year, and Buffalo played a bunch of cover 2, I think it was in week 6, Kansas City ran the ball 43 times. So we're going to go ahead and run it. And then they played against Buffalo in the championship game, and Buffalo did the same thing. And Kansas City said, we're going to throw the ball. You could do that against Buffalo. You're going to be harder pressed to do that against Tampa Bay. You're going to be harder pressed to continually do that. The other thing, and I knew that the Chiefs had a problem, is they weren't targeting Carlton Davis. They barely threw anything his way. Never mind beating him. Carlton Davis had been an atrocious coverage player since week 8. From week 9 on, he had given up a double-digit yards per attempt in nearly every game that he played in, and he gave up 6 touchdowns, and they weren't even throwing his way, which means that they were finding ways to hide him in coverage. They were finding ways to do things to make sure that he wasn't covering Hill, or if he was getting the kind of help that moved away. When I saw that, I said the Chiefs are going to have some problems here.
All right, we look back, and, Mahomes, I mean, he's obviously we would think he was going to be here a lot, but what about Brady? What do you see Brady still playing at a high level again next season? He said last night, I'm coming back. So when you watched him last night and watch him this season, do you still see that Tampa Bay with that team is going to be right back at it again next year? They should be better. I mean, they didn't have a training camp. They just kind of forced this team together.
They did, and look at what they were. Run the ball, throw screen passes, and go deep as a counterpunch. If they have the kind of defense that they have this year, if they can keep that crew together, I mean, Devin White's only 22 years old, and if they bring it, if they take what they have, they're going to lose some of it. They can augment it and get back to close to what they were this year. If they can continue to run the ball effectively, and guys like Leonard Fournette, as talented as he is, you can get good running backs. They're out there. If you give them good run blocking, pretty much any running back can be a quality running back. And if you get anybody's got a little above average talent, you can make them into a superb running back if you give them good run blocking. So if they keep doing that and say we can play that sort of game, and all we have to have Brady do is counter punch, throw deep, or just be an accurate short passer, and those are the things we're asking him to do. He wants to play to 45. I see no reason he can't do it. We can have another couple, 3 seasons of Tom Brady at this level.
Wow, it's incredible. I'm here for it. I feel like I want him to win instead of the Eagles. I'm just like, give me 8, give me 9. I think it's crazy that you look at who really was successful. I mean, obviously they were all successful, but Gronk, AB, Fournette, all these guys that he kind of said, hey, let's go do this in Tampa Bay. Let's make this happen. They really stepped up last night.
I think Brady knew that he could take those guys and what Brady, the Peter King article said that he wrote all the players and said, we will win. And he set that kind of mindset. And I think he almost has, Bill Parcells used to talk about having Parcells guys. I got Parcells guys. I got my type of players, my type of coaches, the guys who are going to play my type of game. I think Brady has those two in mind as being Brady guys, that I'm going to have a certain mindset going into these games, and you guys are going to be able to have that mindset. I can't do it all by myself is what he's thinking. I need to have people who can do this with me, and he gets those people on board, and so they can come onto the team. And even though they're going to play a role, obviously, with Gronk's blocking, and he caught a couple of touchdowns yesterday, Antonio catches a touchdown, it's as much that they set the standard of what kind of game he wants to play, and that they can take the Brady approach and obviously the Arians approach now that they merge together and spread that throughout the team. Because you don't want just one player or one coach being able to spread that message. You want everybody to be able to do it. And I think that's part of their value.
All right. Well, the season is in the books. It is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They are the world champions for the second time in their existence. Tom Brady leads the way. Casey Joyner broke it all down for us all season long at KC Joyner TFS on Twitter, thefootballscientist.com. And another season, my friend, is sadly in the books. But it's been great having you.
It has been great being here, guys. I really appreciate it.
And we look to do it again for 2021. Thanks, pal.